A high-ranking admiral is denouncing China for breaking its promise over international obligations. One America's Hans Hubbard reports.
The U.S. condemns China's decision to skip a joint military safety meeting, calling it a further sign the communist regime does not honor its promises. A Wednesday statement from the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said representatives from the People's Liberation Army suddenly pulled out of scheduled talks related to maritime safety without explanation. The talks, which were slated to be held virtually over the course of 3 days this week, have reportedly been held every year without fail since the 1998 signing of the Military Maritime Consultative Agreement. And it was not immediately clear why China would choose not to participate this year. Admiral Phil Davidson, commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, called out the Chinese Communist Party for refusing to abide by its previous commitments, adding nations around the world should think twice before entering into deals with the People's Republic of China, as this is the latest evidence it does not care about honoring its word. Following U.S. condemnation, Chinese officials claim they pulled out of the meeting due to the U.S. seeking to impose its agenda unilaterally and sought to paint the move as a reaction to bullying behavior from the U.S., laying the blame on the American armed forces for torpedoing the meeting. This controversy is the latest in a string of disputes signaling the decaying relationship between the US and China as the Trump administration continues to crack down on Beijing's growing global reach. And top administration officials have often highlighted the PRC's disregard for international norms and unwillingness to follow through on its obligations to other nations. Earlier this month, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemned China for ignoring its previous commitments regarding Hong Kong, stressing the importance of the world holding Beijing accountable for these transgressions.
But most importantly, I think what the whole world can demand of the Chinese Communist Party is that it lives up to the promises that it made. You mentioned Hong Kong. They made a commitment, a 50-year commitment. They welched on it about halfway through. When the world sees that, there has to be a cost.
While the safety meeting was meant as a routine engagement between China and the US, China's withdrawal could be seen as a sign of emboldenment on the part of Beijing with regards to maritime policy and the Indo-Pacific region in particular. Over the last year, China has increasingly sought to lay claim to this strategically vital area, which holds one of the world's most important trade routes, encroaching into other sovereign nations' maritime claims and ramping up its military presence in the region. In response, early this year, the US State Department formally set down its Indo-Pacific policy, pledging to support China's neighbors in the struggle to keep the Indo-Pacific a free region, and urging the world's democracies to coalesce behind American leadership in fending off the threat from Beijing.
On Monday, for the first time, we made our policy on the South China Sea crystal clear. It's not China's maritime empire. If Beijing violates the international law and free nations do nothing, then history shows that the CCP will simply take more territory. That happened in the last administration. Our statement gives significant support to ASEAN leaders who have declared that the South China Sea disputes must be resolved through international law, not might makes right. What the CCP does to the Chinese people is bad enough, but the free world shouldn't tolerate Beijing's abuses as well.
Hans Hubbard, One American News.
Want to see more videos like this? Visit OANN.com for immediate access to all the clips you've been waiting to see.